Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Today we are talking about trail etiquette. How should you behave toward other riders, other horses, motorists, cyclists, all of these things on the trail? And the common consensus is small groups, you can pick and choose those that will be more courteous. But in general, it is basically, I've discovered most people don't listen and don't follow these very common and just common courtesy practices. Now, this is a very hot topic. You know how I know? Because I posted this question yesterday about what were some trail etiquette suggestions. And my one post since yesterday afternoon has over 340 comments. So I have compiled a list. I have not read through every comment. I read through all the beginning ones. This is my list to go through. I'm sure there are plenty more, but this is common courtesy. These are things that once I say them, you'll be like, oh yeah, of course, everybody should do this and treat each other kindly and respectfully. But it seems like lots of people either don't know or decide they don't care. Now, we're going to assume that many of you, since you are gaited rider, you're trail riders, and this is what you do, that you're going to practice this. So I wish that we could get this out to everybody that uses the trail and that they would watch it and take heed, and it would be safer for everybody. But in case there are people that are new, we are going to go through these. These are in no particular order, and you're going to hear a common theme among some of them. So this is a video. If I had time or the skills, I would make this cute little infographic describing everything, but I don't. So I'm just gonna read them off one by one and answer any questions you have. I've read a lot of comments about all of these. So first one, if there is a green horse, young horse, and they ask you to pass slowly, pass slowly. Green horses especially, sometimes they are on the trail because they need those trail miles and they expect other riders to be courteous. Green horses can have a number of issues with horses passing them, and it's better to do it slowly. In this case, someone rushed past even after being yelled and asked to go slowly, and the person ended up getting hurt. Most of these stories that I have heard, if you do not follow the common courtesy, ends in someone getting hurt. And I want to avoid that. Having personally been in situations on the trail where people have left me behind, which we're going to get to, it's very stressful at minimum. And I never got hurt. When people leave you behind, especially on a green horse, or any horse, but I've definitely had that happen. Horses are herd animals, and it doesn't matter if they've never seen that horse in their life. If a horse goes past, they're going to be interested. So let's just make that clear. Number 2, or what the next one, I don't have them numbered. Only ride a group as fast as the slowest, greenest horse rider can go. Now, this is one that came up many, many times. Also described as riding to the lowest common denominator. So if you have a green rider or a green horse, you do not go faster than that rider is capable, comfortable, and you do that by asking. You ask them how fast they want to go. You check with them first before going on certain trails that are harder, or taking off, or even cantering or going at a fast gait, because their horse may not be ready for that. Never leave anyone behind. And this is very similar. I'm just going to say them because it's a pretty common thing, is that if people stop to get off, if someone needs a pit stop, if you get off to water your horses, check your tack, anything. You do not walk your horse away even a little bit, because that person's horse could perceive that as you leaving, even if you aren't. Be very careful, because when people are mounting or on the ground, there's a lot of things that can go wrong on trail rides. This includes leaving the campground. This includes horses grazing or drinking water. There have been so many stories, and I think I mentioned it more often as well, about how important this is to think about this before you walk away. Chrissy says this is definitely a hot button topic. It is, but nobody's watching it because I don't have anybody to show falling off. Whitney says, hi from Mississippi, Alabama state line. Chrissy says, guilty, sorry I left you behind that one time. She did. However, in my defense and her defense, my horse and I are very experienced. We did get left behind. Some of it was my fault for not seeing the trail, but my horse was very good and I'm a very good rider. And my horse was not green and nothing bad happened. So that's not a big deal. Part of it was because I didn't have a gaited horse, I had my quarter horse. Okay, do not go fast past without asking everyone. So let's say you want to gait fast or canter, even just up a hill. Always ask to make sure everybody is okay with that and that they're okay with doing it now. All right, super important. Never run your horse past another horse. This, again, if you have their permission, but if you have their permission, then they know you're there and you're not just coming up on them. Similar vein, another comment I had was make sure you don't canter around curves you can't see anything. Because if you can't see, then you don't know if there's a horse right there or a person or a cyclist. And it's your fault if something happens and you were just cantering around the corner, especially if you can't see. Now, if you can see, you have the ability to slow down. You should always slow down to pass people. So this one was mentioned many, many times. It's about hills and ditches and water. So, or a narrow trail opening, especially hills, uphill, downhill, through ditches, over water. Always wait until the horse is through before moving on. So two things. One, if you're at, let's say in the example, let's say we're all going downhill and you're at the bottom of the hill, you've already done it. Don't leave the area, clear the way in case the horse needs to run down, but get out of the way, but do not leave the area or even look like you're trying to leave the area because the horses at the top or the horses that are on their way down may decide that they need to run to catch up. So one, if you're at the top, wait for a horse to go all the way down or all the way up. If you're at the bottom or the top, never look like you're going to leave, but please make sure you get out of the way. This is for everyone's safety, and I'm not going to go on. It's pretty common sense, obviously. A big issue is that horses are barn sour and buddy sour, and especially buddy sour, even with horses they've never seen before. Don't put another rider, and it's not just the horse, don't put another rider in a dangerous situation because you moved on and their horse wasn't okay with it. At ride's end, make sure everyone is loaded and car started before leaving. That's a really good point because sometimes cars don't start. And if everybody's left, there's no one to jump your battery or help you load your horse or call for help. Wait for everyone to mount before any rider leaves. This was mentioned so many times. When people go to mount their horses, it's one of the most dangerous times. Don't even look like you're taking your horse away if someone is mounting. Because horses can see that and decide they need to get to that horse right away, and they may never have walked off before in their life, but they go to follow that horse and the rider could get hurt or just have a very hard time getting on. Not everything ends in someone getting hurt, but so many stories, it does. Okay. Keep at least 5 to 6 feet between you and the horse in front of you. This, again, seems like common sense. Now, I've been on green horses who I went with a group and we knew that horse was green and we let him go behind a horse he was familiar with, and I had it was the same owner's permission to be right up close. Now, I tried to keep the horse back off, but at the beginning this horse was very young and nervous and needed to be close, but I had permission. If you do not have permission to ride up tight behind someone's horse, keep your distance. Otherwise, you deserve and your horse deserves to get kicked. If you're having trouble, ask for help. Go in front if you need to. Communicate this. But it is up to you to make sure that you're not getting too close to the other horse. In the same vein, keep your horse's body parts away from every other horse. Do not let your horse stiff noses with another horse without their specific permission. And even then, be very careful because things can happen very quickly in that moment. So do not let your horse sidle up next to another horse. Do not let them sniff noses. Do not let them sniff the other horse's flank. Keep the nose away from the other horse unless you have permission. Talk to other riders about what speed you and your horse are comfortable with. Kind of repeating it, but it bears repeating because it's so important. Be patient with horses riders who are greener, newer than you are. Obviously, If you're riding and you obviously picked who you're going to ride with, whether you go on a big, huge, gigantic group or a small one, is your job to ride with that group and to take care of the greenest, newest rider. Okay, that's your job. No crowding. Whether you're on the trail, whether you're at the campsite, it doesn't matter where. Make sure you're not crowding other people. Make sure your horse is giving other people space, both riding and on the ground. Ask permission to pass another horse. Make sure it's okay and you don't just come up past them. A lot of things can happen. Your horse could get kicked. Their horse could spook. Lots of things can happen. The horses could decide to race. Don't do it. Ask permission to pass. Make sure and pay attention. If the other horse is having trouble or the rider's having trouble, maybe back off. Always talk to oncoming riders. Now this applies to cyclists and hikers and riders. When they are coming at you, you have a couple options. You should slow down to a walk if you are going fast. The other thing you should do, you could stop and get off the trail, but in light of that, make sure you walk. And as soon as you see them, talk to them. Be friendly, but make sure that your horse is aware by having them talk to you. Ask them how things are going. If it's a cyclist or a hiker, they may not know that you want them to talk. Go ahead and ask. Say, hey, can you just talk to my horse? His name is so-and-so. My horse is Jackson. Can you say hi to Jackson? But be friendly and smile because we do share the trail with other people and we want to be courteous. When going downhill, do not crowd the horse in front of you. If possible, let them finish the descent. Now, if your horse is buddy sour, this can be very difficult because that horse is going to leave and your horse is going to want to go with them. Now, one thing that you could do is ask to go first if you know your horse is really buddy sour. There are so many stories of horses that fall and have fallen on riders. They fall into the horse below them. So if you can wait for them to finish first or go first yourself, that's probably safer. Again, will this happen every time? Absolutely not. But yes, riding horses is dangerous. But these are common courtesy things that we should all be practicing so that everybody stays as safe as possible. Do not leave horses behind at any obstacle. Now, we have had a few people, Chrissy mentioned that there are people that come up to that she finishes an obstacle for NATRAC trail riding, for example. And someone comes up to the obstacle and just as she's about to leave, and they're worried that their horse is going to get upset if Chrissy leaves. And so they ask her to stay and they slow her down. That's different than water obstacle, a log obstacle, and a group trail ride, not a competition. Don't leave any horse behind at a water obstacle. Let horses cross all together and then you guys can continue on. Talk to hikers and cyclists so they know how to behave around horses. Start talking to them as soon as you see them. Again, this just comes under common courtesy and we want to educate people. They may not know, so it's your job to possibly educate them, but do it in a kind way. Be kind and courteous. That's my next point. So it fits right in. Okay, so this next one, do not bring loose dogs unless legal and everyone okays it. So this is a little bit of a hot topic for me because I love riding with my dog. And on some of the trails I've been, there have been loose dogs. And all my horses are trained for dogs to come barking at them. They're trained and used to this. Now, I recently rode a couple times with Chrissy at a place that legally allowed dogs. And I brought my dog. Now, one time it was just Chrissy and I. And her horse is very much used to dogs, and mine as well. And then we rode with a group, and before we left, we made sure everybody was okay. But my dog actually stays right with me. He doesn't bark at other horses, either oncoming or any of the other ones. He will run in and out of the brush occasionally, but we were going so fast, he just stays right next to me. He doesn't bother the other horses. So, I know there are people out there that really like to ride with their dogs. One, make sure it's legal. That's important. And ideally, make sure everybody who you're riding with is okay and that your dog, if you're worried about him running up to other horses, which my dog does not do, leash them when you get to another group of horses. Bring a long leash with you, like a 10-foot lead. Just clip it on while they pass, which for some trails, it might happen once or twice. That's not that hard to do to make sure your dog doesn't spook their horses. On the same vein, I am going to encourage riders to make sure you train your horses to be used to dogs, okay? Because dogs are on trails. Dogs are more and more prevalent as more people bring them. And again, many are not leashed. And one thing that was brought up, it's like if your dog wants to run up to a horse, don't let it, because you don't know, that horse may be fine with it, but he may try to kill your dog. And this is a very good point that people bring up. But what I am going to say is it's your job as a rider to make sure your horse is okay with dogs. Now, an attacking dog is a very different situation, and it's a very, very difficult thing. But I will say this, when people tell me their horse is afraid of dogs, I just feel sorry for them, because I've been on trails where dogs have come up, whether legal or not, and my horses didn't care. So, as much as you should always make sure your group is okay with dogs, you as a rider should spend time getting your horse used to dogs. Okay? That's what I would say. Okay, we're going to get to that, Chrissy, Chrissy says, know where your kickers are. We're going to get to that shortly. Do not travel fast if you can't see what's ahead of you. Very good point. If you can't see what's around the bend or in front of you, don't travel fast, because you never know what's around the corner. Keep your horses away from any other part of the horse unless you have permission. If someone is walking their horse, ask if they need assistance. This one seems like a no-brainer. Like, if someone's walking their horse, check and see if they're okay. There were so many stories that people shared of them being hurt and people passed them and nobody asked for help. Check. Just ask. Can I help you? Do you need anything? Can I just ask? Pick up your trash. Don't leave beer cans, water bottles, toilet paper. Pack it in, pack it out. Don't leave trash. If your horse might kick, put a red ribbon in the tail, and know if there's anybody in your group that has that, and always be aware of where that horse is so you're not near them. Don't put them in a position where they have to feel bad. It's your job as the rider to be safe. Apparently yellow is for stallions, so if you have a stallion, put a yellow ribbon in the tail, and put a green ribbon if you have a green horse. And again, make sure everyone knows you have a green horse and that you might have difficulty and how they can help. Take turns going first into water. Common sense. You want horses to get the experience of going first. Take turns leading if possible. Same reason. Don't rush away from water until everyone is ready to go. Now, there was some discrepancies on this one. Some people said you can wait till everybody crosses, but if their horses are playing in the water, you can leave. I feel like this is a communication issue. Talk to the riders. Talk to your people. If you're just leaving them behind because they're taking too long, either don't ride with them or figure out how you guys can all get along. Keep all parts of your horse away from other horses. I said that. Assume every horse needs personal space. You know, when I'm at a fair, like, for example, I go to the Midwest Horse Fair, and there's horses everywhere. And I don't have time to look and see how many are stallions. So you know what I do? I treat every horse as if it's a stallion. Every horse. I give them room. I don't touch them. I mean, again, most are super well behaved and amazing, but it's your job to stay safe. So treat every horse if it's a mare or a stallion and give them space. Don't bring a horse that's too green. Now, we all need to take our green horses on the trail to get experience, but make sure they're not too green that they're going to get in danger to you and in danger to other people from basic stuff. Okay, I like this one. This was one that was only mentioned once that I saw. Medical care. If anybody is carrying an EpiPen or needs medication, find out who that person is. If they have a medical condition, ask at the beginning of the trail, and if they have medication with them or where you can find it, just in case. For example, I have asthma. I usually carry an inhaler with me in my pocket or my pouch, but I should announce that to everybody at the beginning of the trail just in case something happens. Eating on the trail. So I need that paper back. I know many people do not like to let their horses eat because they think it develops bad habits. Well, I would say it's a training issue, but let me tell you one thing. Horses are made to eat something like 23 hours out of the day. Horses need hay in their belly or grass because otherwise they develop ulcers. You can Google this and find this out yourself. If you're doing anything longer than an hour-long trail ride, I highly recommend you stop and let your horse eat and have a break, just to get something in their stomach so it absorbs the stomach acid. You can look up, they produce something like huge, like gallons every day, their body doesn't stop producing stomach acid. Now, you should not block the trail if your horse is eating. And my friend Chrissy actually requested, she said, she often lets her horse eat next to the trail, okay, not blocking the trail. And if you're riding along and you come across a horse eating, it I'm not going to say this is an absolute rule, common courtesy to stop and let your horse eat as well. Because if you go past, there's a good chance that horse is going to want to follow you and will stop eating. Just a thought. I know many people are going to be like, but I don't want my horse eating. Well, here's the thing. Give them a cue so that they know it's okay to eat. You can say eat now. You can say okay. You can say graze on. You can say anything you want and give them a cue that now it's okay to eat and not let them eat before that. Almost done with my list. Pass quietly until out of sight. So let's say you do have to pass someone. Pass them quietly at a walk and do not take off, whether in a gait or a gallop, until you are out of sight of that horse. Because if that horse sees you take off, there's a good chance it will take off after you or give the rider trouble. Be careful about letting go of branches. Okay, this one seems obvious. When going under branches, it says try not to hold on to it and let it snap back. Instead, lift it over you so you don't injure the rider behind you. Or say something like there's a branch, and so that they know to watch out for you when you let go. Another thing that is yell out conditions. If there's a hole on the trail, yell it out. Say, hole on the right, and the rider should pass it back. We did this. We were doing a hiking trip for a film, and we had about a 3-hour hike. And we were hiking back, and we would be like, slippery rock on the right, and then everybody would yell it back. And it's a really common, I've never seen that hiking before. And just to be aware, like mud, slippery mud, and everybody would yell back, water on the rocks, slippery leaves, or big drop down, or movable rock. We would yell that back so everybody knew. It's just to be aware of the trail conditions and let everybody know. They may not have seen it. Some other person mentioned ground bees. If somebody behind you yells bees, keep moving, but move your horse out of the way in case their horse has to take off so you don't get run into. All right, Jana says, I'm going to go through that. If it is a bad boulder or rock, go slow and stop and wait for the next horse to get through, then move up a little till the next horse and so on. This is so the horse will pay attention and not hurry. Very true. You do not want horses rushing through obstacles. Chrissy said, I've had horses fall into me and mine going up the hill. Yeah, so if you're doing hills, the safest way is to let every rider go one at a time up and down hills. Chrissy says she taught Callie to chase aggressive dogs. And her horse was totally fine with my dog because my dog didn't bother her. He never ran under her feet. He didn't bark at her, didn't snap, but her horse is not spooky about dogs. Ed's Walking Horses says probably a good idea to bring a spare pair of reins in case you lose yours on the trail and can't find them. Spare pair of glasses in case you lose yours on the trail and can't find them. That's a good point. It's actually a really good idea to bring spare of almost everything. Somebody said bring a knife and extra leather just in case something breaks and you can make a hole and tie it together. Jill said you should always let your horse eat on the trail. It keeps their stomach moving. Totally agree. Michelle says, myself and the group I ride with always warn of possible hazards, even plastic bottles. I had a mare that hated bottles. That's a really good point. And it's something that I don't think it's commonly practiced, but it's super easy just to start yelling out like, ooh, tree root. Ooh, there's a branch. And then everybody knows it's coming up. Let's see. I don't think I have any more comments to go through, and that's the end of my list. There are probably more that I'm missing, but a lot of it is just common sense. Another one that I saw mentioned is don't ride when the trails are muddy. Now, in Illinois, where there's a state park we usually rode, if the trails were too muddy, they would close them. Be courteous if trails are closed because of mud or bad conditions, because horses especially can ruin trails. And one comment was funny. They're like, there aren't any little trail elves that come along and fix the trail overnight. It's true. It's usually your tax dollars paying for it. So obey the rules and don't ride if it's closed. Okay, I'm going to post this list. I'm going to go through and make it a little more condensed, and I'm going to post it in the description as soon as this video is over. Let me know if you have any questions quickly. Casey says, be mindful of local wildlife. In Florida, we have feral pigs and gators. Yes, some areas of the country have bears, they have alligators, wild pigs, and they can startle your horse, as well as deer in many, many parts of the country. And you can't always train for that. One thing you can do is have a bear bell if you live where wildlife is an issue. And one, actually I was given one, so I have one, and it has a magnet. So if you're riding and you're in an area that it's not an issue, you can magnetize the bell so it's quiet. But then you can take the magnet off and it just makes a rhythmic ringing noise as you walk to let wildlife know you're there. Especially in the case of if you're worried about bears and other things, keep an eye out and don't be quiet. That's what they tell you. Don't be quiet. Whitney says we're always on the lookout for snakes on the trail too. Yes, definitely a problem where you have a lot more rattlesnakes or in the mountains, and snakes will be sunning themselves on the trail, and they could be rattlesnakes or dangerous poisonous snakes. You have to watch out and of course warn everybody, and I'm not sure what you do about getting them off. Maybe go back home because it's a bad day. We went hiking in Colorado once and we met a lady and her German Shepherd on the trail, and we got to talking to her, and she lives like in the valley. She says she hikes there every day. She said the day before we were there were like 15 rattlesnakes on the trail because the weather had warmed up enough and they were sunning themselves. Now, she said usually you just walk around them and they leave you alone, but it's a lot harder with horses to do that, and horses might be scared of snakes. Chrissy says armadillos are spooky too. She said they're so unaware of your presence. Yeah, they pretty much ignore you. I saw my first armadillo trail riding with Chrissy. Fortunately, my horse didn't care at all, but it like just kind of digs around, roots around in the leaves, and it can be really scary to a horse. So wildlife that you may be excited to see, your horse may not be so excited. And everybody should call out if it's there so that you can be ready in case your horse doesn't see it. All right. Thank you guys so much. It was a good video and we had so many comments. If you want to read more comments and stories, go to that post. You can check it out and read all the comments. There's over 300. I hope this helps, and I hope people that don't know see this, but my guess is that we're going to get a lot of people that already know this stuff. But please share it because you never know who's going to watch it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great week.